So anyway, thank you so much, all of you, for being here. It's so nice to have leaders in a wide range of positions and that take care of different ages. And I know, Michael, you're in charge of the pre-college and the extended division for adults, right, at San Francisco Conservatory. And Andrea's leading the helm at New England Conservatory, and Dana is taking care of musicians from the emerging young talents all the way through to, business leaders and arts executives. So it's really nice to have a just different perspective. And obviously I'm taking care of, the cohort of musicians that are in just starting out their careers and beyond. So I just wanted to ask each of you how you're all doing in your, particular position and with your institutions. Maybe we can start with you, Michael.
Yes, of course. So things have been going quite well despite all of the unique circumstances that we are in with COVID-19, of course. I'm sure all of you know our schools nationwide went online, and that included all of our pre-college instruction at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. So we have about 278 young musicians taking private lessons, studying musicianship, chamber music, large ensemble. We even have an early childhood program that all within about a time period of a week or so, we had to pivot all of that education online. So it has been a pretty monumental amount of work, but it's been extremely rewarding to see all of the students and faculty really rise to the challenge and innovate.
That's fantastic to hear that, it's working. What about with you, Andrea? I'm curious, in the more conservatory like situation.
Yeah, no, very similar kind of experience to Michael's. We've shifted online very quickly, and that was a testament to people's flexibility, their capacity for great creativity in the time of need. But I mean, I think the big thing, a couple of things have really struck me through this whole thing, and that's it's just been very humbling. The whole experience has been very humbling, right? The thing that is the one constant through all this is that it's changing and changing quickly. And so just when you think you've got a plan, you need the third or fourth plan. So it's very humbling. And then on the other side of it, there's just a sort of sense of the importance of humanity, very, very aware of how for granted we take typically being together. This thing has caused us to, sort of do that thing which is so not human to us. So really sort of reflecting on how that affects all of our work has been interesting as we've made these quick changes like Mike.
Dana.
I'm very lucky because I've already been working from home, so there hasn't been too much adaptation in that way, apart from not traveling to do speaking and consulting. But I've been helping psychologically all the people who are having to make those fast adaptations to the technology and the business model. A lot of people are having to pivot very, very quickly.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting to watch how responsive, people are, institutions. It's amazing how you've been able to adapt so quickly, because I think even on a personal level, what's fascinating to me is watching how people are dealing with, whether it's, really taking advantage of the time to themselves, or whether they're just completely paralyzed by the situation. And I'm curious, because I know that I've been very much, and I know I've had conversations with you, Andrea, and you, Dana, about the direction this was going in terms of training musicians for the next generation, even without this, unforeseen situation. And how, I'm curious to know what is becoming really obvious to you about what is and isn't working in the institutions, like in the pre-college and also in the slightly older category as well. Michael, maybe you can speak to that a little bit first, because I love the fact that, we're attacking different age groups here.
Sure. One thing that came right out of the gate was our familiarity with technology. And it was so vastly different across our faculty, our staff, and our student body. So one of the things that we learned very quickly is people were not equipped with equipment, with software, devices, mobile devices, and when it came to being fluent in using the Zoom platform, thank goodness for Zoom. Just want to put a shout out there for all for them. It took a bit of training for all of those folks, and it really revealed that there's a bit of a gap in our education of our musicians who are not taking full advantage of all the incredible technology that's out there and developing. We're lucky that this happened now and not 10 years ago, because I don't think the technology existed in the same way that it does now. But I will say that it has definitely kind of lifted the rug on kind of where are the opportunities here for us to leverage this technology, learn it, and teach more effectively with it.
Yeah, I'm curious to know how quickly, as an institution, you're able to do that, because I can see even on the CAG roster, where they are more experienced and they have platforms, most of them already, how quickly they're able to adapt. And a lot of them do have the, the savvy to have the equipment and be to have the skill set also to be able to talk to an audience through a live stream, which is something that not everybody is good at, especially musicians that can often be introverts. And so I'm wondering, a lot of us are musicians ourselves, and I'm wondering how much practice that can take, as well as our instruments, and if that should start at a younger age, especially with what's going to be ahead of us now.
Sorry. Oh, go ahead, Andrea.
No, go ahead, after you.
I will say that we saw many young students helping our faculty.
That's great. Yeah.
With their Zoom. So, and it goes the other way around too. So.
Yeah. Very, very true. No, I mean, that's been one of the things that has really struck me. It was probably this way before, but emphatically now is the case, right? Online is now just another stage that we as a conservatory need to train our students to perform on. And I think this was the biggest sort of learning curve, which we did not solve because the technology isn't quite there and because it wasn't short enough time over the last 6 weeks. But it's not just how do I take this thing that I do in person or on a physical stage and move it into this other platform. It's how do I create a transformative experience in an online way, right? It's a totally different thing. The audience is different. The week before we went on spring break, which was the week that we sent everybody home, the beginning of the week, we had to quickly switch to having no in-person audiences. And for a few of the students, that was a blow because they're used to having an in-person audience, or they had a very small internal audience. And it was sort of, I want to play before a large audience. Turned out we've flipped the switch on streaming, and it turned out the first night, 3,000 people listened to the stream, right? Which is 3 times more than can fit in Jordan Hall. And sort of to wrap your head around that, it's a different audience, a different level of engagement, and to think about that in a different way. Now that's just a basic stream, but just to sort of get into, how do I perform for those people when I can't see them necessarily? How do I think about what the audience is? How do I communicate with them in a different way? And how do you find inspiration in that as well? So those are, for me, those are very much the things that we have to give our students a chance to practice as we do in traditional formats.
Yeah, and often that's just so different to what their teachers, most students' teachers have been used to doing, and so they're not able probably to teach that because it's not something that's in their repertoire of experience. I'm curious, Dana. I mean, you work with a lot of musicians. I mean, what do you find with the kind of technological adaptability that and emotionally how that causes anxiety?
Yeah, I think it's all the points that's been mentioned. The biggest part that I'm seeing is mindset, because there's so much shock and grief that if a person is not really forward thinking, they're looking at this as a substitute for what they've lost. And so the adaptation is very difficult and glitchy. And for those who've already been thinking about the importance of their audience or audience relationship building, or having some kind of personal development that goes beyond how their performance is validated by an audience. These are the kinds of things that help people get creative very quickly. And so a lot of people have been just fighting the technology simply because they're frustrated by it and they can't feel the connection, but they've never thought about what Andrea mentioned about transcending the form. And so the grief, I think, has been making it difficult for people to think creatively.
I feel like this is just bringing to light something that I've, been working with, even CAG for a long time, that it's not to mention just the economic impact of this. What are the skills that you need beyond your playing? And I'm curious, what you're teaching from the pre-college level on that helps musicians leave and graduate with skills beyond just playing Schubert beautifully, or a recital beautifully in a concert hall.
Yeah.
And do you think that it's able to change quickly to adapt to the new world?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we did at SFCM was launch a whole new series called is a Tiny Dorm series, which is every single day at 5 p.m. we did a whole concert coming to you live from everybody's living room, students, faculty, alumni. And let me tell you, those people still got nervous, even though they were still playing in their living room, and they had to speak.
And it's worse, isn't it? In a way, it's worse.
I know, yeah.
It's worse in a way, yeah.
And they had to address their audience more so than they would have felt inclined to in a live setting, which you got to get a little bit more feeling for their personality and who they were. And that was really beautiful. And like Andrea said, in one night we were able to see thousands of views versus the couple hundred that may sit in our concert hall. So we're reaching a much broader audiences with that, and so they are getting that huge benefit. And we've also gone into master classes online. Just recently we had Jeremy Dank, James Ennis engaging with these students, and it's really opened up our ability to bring in artists from all over the world without having to fly them in necessarily.
Yeah.
And our students have really benefited from this new platform. I will say that the digital presence is the big skill that folks need to work on moving forward, developing that at least. If they didn't have it, they're going to have one now. As a lot of these videos are evergreen, they're on YouTube forever, and they can really start building from that. So from the pre-college standpoint, we have students already doing Instagram stories, Facebook live feed concerts, and really starting to develop their brand and identity at a young age.
Dana, I know, we've talked a lot about like having musicians have a purpose and kind of almost working backwards from what a musician wants an audience to feel, whether it's online or in a concert hall, and they have to work backwards, whether it's what their programming is, what the emotional content of their program is to make the audience respond the way they want, and then building up to that with all the marketing and how do you think the skill, what are the skills that you're saying or not generally from the musicians you're working with, and what do you wish you could see more of?
That's a great question. I mean, the whole purpose of having a vision is so that you're intrinsically motivated. And the reason why that's so important is because it puts you in the part of the brain where you can hold paradox and you can be more solution focused. So there's actually a real purpose to it. And when we see musicians who are extrinsically driven, they're going to have a very difficult time right now, because suddenly those are all gone. We cannot measure ourselves by these external factors right now. It's a time where people are forced to go within and start to self-evaluate. So if people have not done that and they don't know why they're doing what they're doing, all those reasons to be successful aren't happening right now for an indefinite period of time. And those that I feel successfully adapting I think they understand that we're not looking for a substitute for live experiences, that we are using this as an opportunity to build relationships, to educate, to be more vulnerable, more transparent, and to really have the opportunity to see this as a time where the arts can really step forward in a very powerful way, and perhaps a way that hasn't been as tangible before because of some of the more structured ways that we've been at distance from our audiences. So I think those who can really think outside the box in how can they serve other people, how can they be creative, how do they collaborate, who can they join forces with, if all bets are off, what can they create now? And then ultimately, how do you make a living doing that? Those are the kinds of questions that are going to help people thrive when there are no more preset formats.
Yeah, because the music field is so precarious, isn't it? And I want to direct this to you, Andrea, because you have such an incredible array of musicians coming out of, the New England Conservatory and how, in every other area, whether it's sports or business, you have so much mental coaching also, and career development that we just don't see in music. And it kind of breaks my heart to see so many wonderful musicians leave school with so little prospects in that sense. So I'm curious as to how do you think we can address, I mean, it's so difficult as an institution to move quickly with these things, but you have such incredible musicians. What are they going to do through this, and how can we better prepare them?
Yeah, so this has been the topic of deep conversation at NEC since I arrived. It's the thing that we're heavy into strategic planning, and everything has been shaped around this exact question. And I apologize for my dog. So I think, it goes to what Dana said. It's getting students to think about the why as much as the what, right? So excellence is the foundation, but impact is the goal. And along the way to get there, you need to learn connection and communication and, curiosity and, sharing, whether that's teaching or performing. And so for our students, really getting them to think about what their particular purpose is, and then to be able to have enough practice and to be free to experiment and to try things out, to be free to fail, right? Which they do every day when they're practicing, but to be able to do that professionally, to be able to give them the space and the freedom to reflect and to practice their professional life in these moments, so that they can see what works for them and what the impact is and how that drives them forward. And from there, they will figure out the monetary bit of it, right? How you build a career. I mean, I think our students, all of us, I think probably all of us are in the same situation. You may have had a notion of what you wanted to do, but along the way discovered an incredibly great world. And I don't think many people go into music specifically thinking that they're going to become, for the lofty benefits package that comes along with it, right? It's this sort of deep love. But the question is why, and why should other people care about it? So for us, it's really getting our students to think about, through your artistry, through your music, through your individual purpose, how do you change the field? How do you change the world of music? But how do you also advance the world generally through your music? And if our students can answer those questions and in a way that's individual and authentic for them, they will make the rest of it work, because it matters, because there's a deep why to it.
Yeah, no, that's so great that, it's not an easy question to answer, is it? It's so difficult. And I know, Dana, we talk about like practical things that, we, even at Conservatory Guild, we often take on some of those top musicians, and we want to help them have a, multifaceted career. And I can see that many of them are lacking more practical skills, even just basic skills, like even understanding how to read. I mean, I can barely do, you learn by doing, sometimes reading, a budget, creating a budget, actually being able to write a short paragraph about your program, or being able to write a short paragraph about a project that you have. And I wonder just how aggressive a school like that can be going forward, because those are the skills I see are just so necessary right now.
I mean, I'd love to speak to that, because I think that's the that's the missing link that we're all trying to solve, right? It's like, at
Right.
least for me, growing up as a cellist, there was, you know, there was almost a stigma that if you thought about money or you thought about marketing, it meant that you weren't a real musician. I mean, there was some messaging that I got for sure early. And I've been thinking so much about that because somehow there seems to still be intergenerationally a conflict between being masterful at your art form and being able to be successful financially or with your business. And what I would love to help people achieve is that understanding that those skills, if we say, you know, you are your business, if you are your startup, for example, then those skills are actually, one, not any different than what we have to do as musicians. They're the same skills translated. And I think that's where people don't understand that it's actually this, we already have the same skill sets, but we don't necessarily translate the language. And then if we can do that and set that up, we actually become better artists because our art form is not jeopardized by our fear around money or time management or, you know, all the skills that are necessary. And I think that's where the growth edge is right now in particular.
Yeah, can I just, if I can just add to that, I mean, it's activating, as you say, it's activating the thing that they do every day, which is sort of practice and perform, right? It's sort of being a musician, but applying it in different ways. You know, I think for schools, really thinking about how we can create again moments for students to practice their profession. And then the skills are in service of that other thing, right? You know, you learn those skills in service of something that drives you. That leads to a career the same way nobody practices scales to play scales. You know, it's the service of this other thing. And so, you know, a budget has meaning if it enables you to present this program that you desperately want to children or to a concert, you know, to an audience or whatever it is, or create a recording. It's a means to an end. But they are skills that need to be practiced. And if they can be practiced alongside the artistry, they're up a one. So I think it's finding ways for us, you know, from my job, you know, where I spend my time thinking is how do we create those connections for students so that they see all of these things that we teach them in a checklist as a Venn diagram, really is intersecting in service of this larger purpose, you know, and a part of that is living, right? It's great. You do want to make money, so.
And sometimes having interests outside of music that kind of inform, right? Because it's so nice to have, I think, more of a connection with something else and to have interdisciplinary ideas. And we're so, I think, you know, in conservatory, we're so trained to be tunnel visioned and to just perfect, you know, your craft at such a high level that it's almost paralyzing to even try doing or thinking about something else. And I wonder how it maybe that can, you know, happen at an earlier age, or that message can change at an earlier age. I don't know. What do you think, Michael?
Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing is we have to integrate that stuff into curriculum. You know, we silo these things so much. You know, we put playing over here and we put all the business over here. And so I think it's very important that at a young age, we start teaching people about what financial independence looks like. That we start teaching them how to write. Because let me tell you, when they graduate, they will be overwhelmed with how much they're going to be required to write, from bios to program notes to professional, you know, emails to grant proposals, and using technology to advance their art form as well, and marketing. Those are some really important skills. You know, one of the things that we've done in the pre-college is revamp our certificate program, which is we have a comprehensive program that students participate in, but if they choose to go above and beyond the core curriculum, they are put into the certificate program where they are really asked to put together things like a budget, a proposal. They are required to do marketing. They are required to put together programs. And what we've provided is step-by-step guidelines for doing that. And we're finding that the students are not only excited to do it, but their individual voice is coming through because they're finding something that they're really interested in, whether it be a community concert or a research project on something, and then they're building this entire little business around it. So it's been really, really exciting to help them with that. It's relatively new with us in the pre-college.
I'm so excited though. Oh, sorry. I just to say, I'm so excited about the pre-college part, because it's a real chance to start from, you know, from the early days and really create the students that we want in Conservatory. You know, as we create this curriculum, then we can backmap it and think about how you prepare the kids to get there. And I have to believe it's so much part of the rest of their lives, whether it's Instagram, you know, influencers, they're seeing people marketing themselves in different ways through passions that they love, that shouldn't be shouldn't be money makers, right? They shouldn't be able to do that. And so if we can get them to think of that as part of their practice from the time they're little, they'll be great by the time they get to Conservatory. All kinds of things to do.
Yeah.
I know, it's so true, but I mean, you know, that's why I wanted to have Dana on the call, because so much of it is also just a holistic approach, because it's very easy to tell, you know, young musicians especially what to do, and actually what we're trying to hopefully to create are people that really know how to follow their own gut and know how to follow their own passions and know how to find joy also with what they do. And I know that it's incredibly difficult to steer them away from doing the right thing, you know, and to find that balance is really hard. I mean, don't you think, Dana? I mean, to get that.
I mean, one of the overwhelming emotional languages I've been hearing from every level of the industry is around fear and guilt. So if people are doing well right now, they feel guilty. If they're doing something that's not their art form or working all the time, they feel guilty. And it's an amazingly universal emotion that is at every level. And I find that so fascinating, because that's the number one thing that kills productivity, innovation, creativity, permission to fail. So there's something around the way that we extrinsically motivate people that I think stops that innate knowing. So rather than going inside and saying, you know, how did I feel about that performance, or, you know, how do I measure the audience's response, or how do I define that success for myself? We're so used to somebody else saying its value or giving permission. And now there's nobody to give permission. So it's such an interesting time to see how people are going to psychologically handle their way out of this uncertainty.
I'm curious to ask each of you. You know, this is, in a way, it's a very, very difficult situation where there's so much uncertainty, and there's so much tragedy, and there's so much disruption. But with that disruption can also come incredible kind of opportunity to create and change in maybe ways that you might not have been able to do that. And I just want to ask each one of you, what do you see changing that now that you think is urgent, and what's bringing to light?
Well, one of the things that I think has been positive about this, or I think may prove to have been valuable sort of in retrospect, is this has almost given people permission, more permission to experiment, you know, to try. So the whole issue of sound quality and, you know, the perfect performance has not been possible, right? And so being able to put something out there and to experiment and be willing to fail and to be willing to not be entirely polished, I think is something that's critical for sort of developing one's purpose and creativity and all of that going, you know, generally. But it's hard to do in a setting where everything is being judged, right? It's hard to do in our traditional settings. And right now is a moment where people have had no choice but to do that or to stay silent, right? So I think that's a skill that can be, or a habit, so like practice that can be extrapolated beyond. And there's an urgency to that, right? You know, it's the way it's flexibility and creativity and imagination are the fuel of the future. You know, the future is now, and the way that you get there is experimenting and trying things. And so I think that will prove to have been important in this moment.
Yeah, I also think that this moment is going to make us really think about how we gather in general. And that's going to challenge a lot of old ways that we've done things. I know that in the coming months, all of our organizations are going to have to figure out how do we socially distance a concert in a concert hall. What does that look like? I know that one of the things that we're looking at is really exciting is, okay, this is an opportunity for us to discover different repertoire, potentially commission different works, to explore a lot more spatial performances, to even dig into really produced works that use click tracks and engineering to create art. So it is definitely going to, I think, push us a little bit in how we consider our concert halls moving forward, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that does to us.
And I'm Andrea, I'm wondering what are you doing with the graduates? How are you advising them as they graduate into this environment?
Yeah, that's really hard. It's, the graduates are the ones I feel my heart really goes out to them, because the culminating piece, the culminating 6 weeks of their, 2 or 4 years of work which is full traditionally of performances and collaboration and stages and audiences, and has been completely shattered and thrust into this entirely isolated moment. It's very difficult. I guess what I would say though is, throughout all of this, people have, from the very moment it all started, people have come to music. There's, the purpose of music, its gift to the world, the creativity in it, not the destruction, the creative act of it, the humanity, the fundamental humanity of music, all of those sorts of things, the community that's found in it on whatever platform, are things to hang on to and things to hone. And so, it's a question of saying to them, the work that you do matters now more than ever, right? It's a moment to really find why it matters to you, to really discover your purpose, to take the time to reflect on that and figure that out. And then to do the thing, as Dana said, the thing that you do every day, and apply that creativity and find a new platform for it. We're not defined by the past. Art evolves in the future. And so it evolves through time and lives in the present and moves forward. And it's a temporal art. And so if they can sort of embrace that, I think it's the things that we always knew that they were going to have to do. It's here now. And so they get to live it. It's hard, but I am hugely optimistic. I really am.
Yeah, no, I think that people are going to, after this, calms down, people are really going to want to come together and share. Don't you think, Dana?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an incredible opportunity too to just innovate how we do everything across the board. Not to blow the whole thing up, because there's plenty that's working really well that will sustain and evolve. But there's so many things that haven't been working that are really on the table now that we can finally discuss. And, I think there's a lot of musicians have really not been aware of most of the other aspects of the industry, except for those who are naturally drawn to that. And so I think there's an incredible opportunity to reestablish or maybe assert art as a placeholder in the world in a much more empowered way across the board. And I'm very excited to see what we'll do with that.
No, I agree with that. I'm curious to ask both Andrea and Michael, what words of advice would you have right now for young musicians that are trying to enter music school and start a career in music, and what are things to think about?
To Andrea and Dana's point earlier, is finding your why as early as possible is so important, because that'll frame all of the questions that follow. That'll lead you to the right school, lead you to the right career. And if you can find that mentor, and your private teachers, our very best private teachers, are the ones who can listen very closely to a student and be aware of what their values are and what their priorities are, and rush in with the resources to give them that. And so, if they're looking to enter this world of music, go to school, I'd encourage them really to spend some time investigating that why. It'll only help them. It'll only give them so much more grounding and so much more of a foundation as they make these big decisions over the next few years of their life. And then the second thing, I will say this again and again and again, have a financial plan. Because let me tell you, if you don't, that graduation date is scarier than you might think. And I think it's really important that we educate our students from a very young age what it means to be financially independent and how we get there. And so if you can work out a plan early enough, that'll get you through so that when you graduate college, you can be debt-free. Your career is so much more wide open to you.
Yeah, one of my, I'm having a flashback because one of the, when Mike and I worked together, one of the first things I remember is him spending the summer taking a finance course online. And so, so he's actually, he lived what he's just preaching here. Yeah, I mean, I think Mike said it exactly. It's to take time to really hone your why as well as your what, as well as your craft, but also to really own it, to feel confident in that. For the students who are coming in, there's a place for music in the world. It does matter. It is human. And in these moments, you recognize the importance of that humanity. But then with that, to really take time to, conservatory college training in general is about learning. You don't come in being perfect. It takes a certain amount of skill to get there, but the point is to learn and to grow. And so take time to listen, really use that time to experiment, to practice your why, practice your professional life, as well as your instrument, and to really stretch yourself, to really listen, to really practice curiosity, right? Active curiosity. Because these are the things that you will piece together, whether it's in music or outside of music, right? And these are the things that you will piece together into a professional life beyond.
I love that, practice curiosity. I mean, it sounds so simple, but it's so difficult for many people that are exactly as you said, Dana. Feeling guilt and shame around anything other than practicing your instrument and honing your craft. And sometimes you have to take away the professionalism and work on the storytelling aspect of everything. And I know I spent a lot of time with managers now who are on the front lines of, especially for the performers out there that want to be soloists. It's even more important than ever, I think, to have a vision and to have a point of view, and to create experiences and programs and communications with your audience, both online, which is incredibly important, by the way, because most presenters, especially now as we get into this difficult financial territory, they're going to be looking for performers that have a following. So this is not a luxury now. This is not something like, I'm not a social media person, it's not me. This is a necessity, a tool to communicate with people. And it doesn't have to be, it's not about self-promotion, it's about connection. And I think finding a connection to ourselves, finding a connection to your audience and to your music and to your programming, I think that's, and Dana, you can take it from there, but that's what we're seeing from our point of view, and that's what the demand is going to be, especially for the performers on the, out there in the market.
Yeah, I mean, I just keep bringing it back to that intrinsic knowing. I mean, I think it's always a journey. It's like we're always our own mystery, but self-awareness and the ability to self-reflect is so essential in being able to do all the things that have just been mentioned, which is to be able to assess what's working, what's not working, to pivot and adapt, to know what your strengths are, to know what your weaknesses are, so that you are not just trying to do what somebody tells you to do because you understand rationally or because you think you should, but to really be able to assess what is truly building that connection. And I think sometimes we can get so, even though we're very insecure, many times we're also very narcissistic. And when we think about audience building, it's actually just caring enough about other people to listen deeply and to find that avenue of connection. And that skill set, I mean, for me as an entrepreneur, my mentor always said, you know, you take the burning pains of other people and you connect it with what you would love to do most. And that those two things come together and can equal net worth. So you do what you love most by helping solve problems for other people, and that's how you earn your living. And that combination has served me better than any other advice, because those are the two things that get you back in your heart and help you tackle the really difficult challenges that come on your way. So if you don't know yourself and you can't connect your worldview or your thoughts or your feelings or your belief systems with your behaviors, your actions, your decisions, then it's almost like there's always this internal conflict inside. So there's never a better time to start working on yourself as your art form.
And it never stops, does it?
No.
It doesn't stop. You know, if someone asked any of us to write a mission or artistic statement, it's not that any of us would have a complete answer to that. And it's just the process of trying to connect to the now of who we are. And it can change, right? Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for chatting. If there's one piece of advice or one reflection that you have, you know, before we leave, you know, what is it going forward? Michael.
Keep making music. We need it. You need it. We all need it. The biggest challenge we have right now is not having the kind of community that we're used to. And so the more that you get out there, you keep sharing music, keep making music, we can still stay connected. So that would be my plea to you.
Andrea.
Oh, geez, so many. Yeah, I mean, I think it's been said, sort of take time for your why, you know, think about the so what, why other people should care about this. But yeah, I think it's believe in the importance of this and make it matter, right? Make it matter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Dana, last word.
Yeah, I guess I'll go practical and say, you know, now is a great time to be increasing your savings every quarter by 10%.
Words of wisdom for us all.
and I would say, because it will psychologically calm you down, right? To be saving, even in a recession. And the other thing is that it's okay to be scared and it's okay to be tired, because people have been going at such a click for so long, they didn't even know how stressed they were before they were forced to pause. So if you're burnt out, you're wiped out, you're scared, take care of yourself. It's okay to sleep. It's okay to rest. It's okay to not touch the instrument right now. Get yourself healthy so that you can, you know, get back in the marathon.
Well, thank you.
I'm taking her advice. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, especially you. Yes.
Yeah.
No, this is great. Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And you know, I wish everybody the best going forward, health, and you know, the right decisions as we move into this uncertain world. It's very difficult, but thank you.
Thank you all. It's
Thank
nice
you.
to be